People will keep asking about garden. I was tilling some here. I have to be careful. I got a lot of toads that I keep running into. But this ground is really nice soil. And toads are a good sign. I mean, if things are in good shape, you'll have toads. But I have to be careful when I'm tilling, so I don't till the toads under. This is the area that the tomatoes will go into. So I keep working that over, just to keep it, it's a good, a sandy loam. The only problem I have is I get a lot of volunteer stuff. I'm using heirloom seeds and stuff that went to seed last year. And see, the damn toads, they get in, the ground is so soft, the footprints get deep. And the toads fall into footprints. But when I was saying about volunteers, like here, I have, this is actually a dill that's volunteer. And there's some kind of melon. I don't, sometimes you can see the seed hollow what it was, but like I say, they're all heirlooms, so a lot of times I will have to kind of save, the seeds, the volunteer stuff. Like this is parsley that is coming up from, well, I had parsley last year in the same place, so I'm letting them go. So I like that. I don't have to replant, parsley if it'll come on its own. But like say, right there is a little dill that's coming in the parsley. But I had dill, those are peas. But I had dill in this row, which is beans this year. But I have a lot of volunteer dill coming up in that row. That's going to be, I have to keep weeding it out. Okay, I've got a row of garlic here, which of course comes fine. This is a row of potatoes. These are the Yukon Gold. And they're a little slow, but they're coming. And this is another row of Yukon Gold. But here again, okay, I had radishes here last year. And I let them go to seed. Now I have a lot of volunteer radishes, which is okay. I'll let them come and use them up. They aren't hurting the potatoes any. But like I say, that's Yukon Gold again. Now these are the Norlands. There's a few volunteer radishes in there. And here is another row of Norlands. And I see I've got an onion that was volunteering. I get a lot of volunteers. Now, this is a row of radishes that I planted. But they're just starting to come up, which is good because I have them, volunteer radishes to work on until they're up. Now, this is a row of carrots. And you can see, like here's a carrot, here's a carrot. Carrots are a tricky thing. I think I got a pretty good catch on them though, but they can be slow to come. Because carrots have to be planted shallow, like a 1/4 inch. Well, they tend to dry out. I've been lucky that we've had rains, had a little rain last night even. So I've got a pretty good catch on the carrots. I don't think I have to replant them. And then there's 3 rows of onions, the set onions, and they're doing fine. Of course, if you can't grow an onion, you got a problem. But I'm glad to see the carrots. They're the thing I'm always a little nervous about. These radishes, like I say, they got in late. They're coming, but I'm not in a worry about them. Some kind of grub that I don't need. There, plant the grub. But it's coming along nice. But I really do have excellent soil for this kind of thing, because it is a good sandy loam, and the ground usually stays pretty moist here. So I got a good handle on gardening. That's funny. I always see, people make gardening. Well, of course, rhubarb is going crazy. These are multiplier onions. I accidentally tilled through them. Of course, it doesn't hurt them. And this is chives. Same thing with them. I accidentally kind of tilled through them. But I've done that before. And then they always come around. You just stick them back in the ground. They'll be fine. It's not a priority with me. What I was going to say about people in their gardening, like a lot of times they have never gardened before, and so the first thing they're going to do is start building, the raised beds. They're buying them. You can buy galvanized raised beds. That's okay. But really, stuff just wants to be in the ground. Gardening ain't that hard a thing. People get all hung up about, like how they can lay their garden out. They make computer simulations of how this should be done. You're getting too deep into something that you're making something simple complicated. If you got a patch of dirt, dig it up. Seeds want to grow. It's not that big a deal. Like rhubarb there. That's an old rhubarb that I transplanted from an old shack back in the woods here. The only thing left there was rhubarb. So it's really old rhubarb. And it's, doing really well. This is what, 3-4 years, maybe 5. But it's an old plant. But stuff wants to grow if you just give it half a chance. You don't need to do all the, it's a bugger if you're living in rocky, flinty ground, it's hard to garden in that, but garden ain't that hard. It's funny because I've got, like last fall, I had canned up a bunch of beef stew in quart jars. I got a good deal on some stew meat, and I had plenty of onions and carrots and potatoes. So I canned up a bunch, which I will now have for dinner. But it's the kind of thing that you got to learn to do. But it's great to have a head, all that stuff. This is one garden. I've got the other garden is on the other side of the hill. And I just got everything seeded in there. That's a whole lot of different kinds of corn. And all of the viney stuff. But this year, tomatoes are going to be over here. That's why I'm digging this ground, tilling it good. That's one thing in gardening, move stuff around. Don't plant the same thing in the same spot all the time. Of course, that's where I get all this volunteer stuff from, moving stuff around. Because even in the onions now, I had some uh, garlic I had there last year that I missed in the digging that now is coming up in the onions. But you learn to live with that stuff. Yeah, gardening ain't that big a deal. But I guess if you've never done it, but if you got a piece of ground, make it useful. It's a bugger. Like if you're living in the city, and then you're people trying to, grow some food in containers. I mean, that's tough. It's good when they try to put out, community gardens where you can get a little lot, and grow stuff. Of course, you're dealing with, hoodlums in the city. I don't know. It'd be tough. But it's an important part of my sustainability is just being able to produce as much of my own food as I can. There's some things you have to buy. Like flour. I have to buy flour. I don't really have enough ground. I mean, I could break up enough ground to have a wheat field to grow my own flour. Wheat to make flour out of. But there gets to be a limit to how much you want to go, and I would say, an important commodity to have on hand is salt and pepper. I tell you, it always drives me nuts, like in the middle of winter, if I run out of pepper. Pepper's one of them things, you can look back through the ages. There's certain commodities that have always had a great deal of value. And salt and pepper are a couple of those commodities. You could still get them at a reasonable price, but if things really go to hell, those are the things that you miss the most. Both salt and pepper are used in preserving meat. You've got to be able to preserve meat. I should do a video on that yet, but spices are something you can't grow. You can, like I've got parsley and oregano and all that, the herbs, but I can't grow salt. That's why salt has always been a valuable thing. Well, I'll go take a look at the other garden, but I'm going to start making my dinner here. Like I said, I want to have some of that beef stew. I guess I'll use that for the thumbnail. Vast as that. But I made up a huge, like 3 or 4 gallons of beef stew and canned it up. But that's a good way of preserving stuff, and it's a great thing to have in the middle of winter. Or even now. It's a quick, easy meal.